This video is going to talk about complex fractions. Remember that a complex fraction is a fraction where the numerator or denominator or both contain another fraction. So as you can see here, we have a rational expression in our denominator and we have a rational expression in our denominator, so in both. So because it's a fraction, it is basically a division problem. So I can simply take this complex fraction and rewrite it as a division problem to make it much easier to see. So the numerator, a plus 1 over a squared minus 4 divided by a squared minus 1 over a plus 2. So now I'm just dealing in a fraction divided by a fraction. So the rules of division of fractions again is to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So you can see that I have gone ahead and flipped the second fraction. So now I have a plus 2 over a squared minus 1. So my job now is to factor any numerator and denominator that I can and reduce any fractions of 1. So a plus 1 obviously is completely factored, but the bottom one, a squared minus 4, can be factored as difference of squares. A minus 2 times a plus 2 times, numerator over here is a plus 2, that's factored. A squared minus 1 is another difference of squares, so a plus 1 times a minus 1. Now if I look for my fractions of 1, I have a plus 2 divided by a plus 2. I have a plus 1 divided by a plus 1. Now you'll notice that all of my numerators have reduced, but every time that they cross out, they're left with the whole number 1. So the actual answer to this problem is the whole number 1 over a denominator made up of a minus 2 times a minus 1. Now let's take a look at that same fraction. Because we had a single fraction in both the numerator and denominator, there is a shortcut method that you might be able to use on a problem like this. Basically, what I've done is I have determined that the least common denominator between a squared minus 4 and a plus 2 would be a squared minus 4. So my LCD would be a squared minus 4. So over here on the right, you will see that I've actually multiplied by a fraction that's the equivalent of 1. A squared minus 4 over 1 divided by itself equals 1. So I am legally multiplying my fraction, making an equivalent fraction by multiplying by 1. Now the reason I did that is so that I could do some reducing ahead of time. So just looking at the numerators, let me draw a big line here so you can see I'm on the top half. This a squared minus 4 and this a squared minus 4 reduces to 1. So my numerator has now simplified to a plus 1 over 1, so it's just a plus 1. Now the denominator is not quite as simple, but we do know that down here a squared minus 4 could be factored as a plus 2 times a minus 2, and then I could reduce this a plus 2 with that one. So what I would be left with is a squared minus 1 times a minus 2 all over the whole number 1, because this became a 1 down here, but anything over 1 is itself, so we drop the 1. So now my fraction has become even more simplified. So now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and factor the denominator and see what I can reduce. So my numerator will be a plus 1. I will factor my difference of squares. A squared minus 1 will become a plus 1 times a minus 1 times a minus 2. A plus 1 divided by a plus 1 becomes 1, and our final answer is simply the whole number 1 over the product of a minus 1 times a minus 2. So that may seem shorter for some people. It may be more complicated for some. So you have a choice of the two different methods to deal with.